We had the only squadron over there with what were they? B-26s. Not
Phantoms.
The intruders. Because they could bomb through cloud cover unlike the rest of the airplanes, so they sent us over there. We stayed over there about a month until things cooled off. Just floating around the North Korean Sea with Russian ships nearby until it calmed down. Then we went back to the Gulf Talk and commenced bombing the North Koreans again. That's about it.
All right. North Koreans or North Vietnamese?
Well, we'd come back to bomb the North Vietnamese, but we would have bombed the North Koreans had something happen.
Okay, we're going to be playing the Ranger from 1968 Super 8 video here, and you go ahead and talk about it as it progresses.
Okay, that is the ocean. That's probably in the North Korean Sea because those other ships out there. This is a ship. One of our aircraft coming in for a landing on the Ranger. I can't tell what. There were two fighter squadrons. Unless I see the sides of it, I don't know whether it was ours or the other. And we had Fighter Squadron 154, and I was in Fighter Squadron 21. Yeah, those were the Russian ships that were following us around. One of our helicopters coming in. Well, we always had one in the air, one during flight ops in case somebody went in the soup. That's another one. Comes another Phantom in for a landing. So far, so good. Making a lot of smoke, but back in them days, we didn't have all the way with environmentalists worrying about smoke. Now, this is that was an H-4 Skyhawk, or Sky Raider, I can't remember. Skyhawk, say they call. That's the Russian ships again. They stayed all around us. There's the A6, or A7s. There's our ship. That's first squadron, Fighter Squadron 21. That's an A4. Another A4. We had two squadrons of those on the ship as well. They're fighter bombers. That's the A7 that superseded the F-8Us. It was looked a lot like the F-8 Crusaders, but it was a different, more modern and smaller version. Then a couple ships to another A4 landing, catching the wire. There's an A6 intruder. That's what got us in the North Korean Sea. Then, other than that, was the other squadron, Fighter Squadron 154. 154. We let them come in when they wanted to. A6 taking that missed the hook, obviously. That's A3s. They actually were bombers originally years ago, and then these are all used for aerial refueling. A3Ds, I can't remember. Air Force had a different name for them. B-26, I don't remember. B something or others. That's the Russian cruiser or destroyer off there keep watching us watch them. They stayed there pretty much with their guns aimed at us the whole time.
That's the one the F-4s used to fly over supersonic?
No, they wouldn't do it supersonic, but they'd fly over them and go straight up above them, aggravate them. We didn't do it so much to them, but we had these Russian crawlers, they called them, that was spy ships that they followed us all the time, even in the Gulf Talk. We aggravated them all the time. That comes with F-4 doing a fast flyover. He's probably aggravating the ship. He's definitely not coming in for a landing at that speed. Actually, that's a Yeah, actually have four. The other one, this may be some Vietnam shots now. It's hard to tell, the water looks the same all over. No, I wouldn't be showing, there wouldn't be ships off the side of us like that. In Vietnam, we had a couple of destroyer escorts, and the only other time you saw ships, if a supply ship came around, oh, look, it's the Blue Angels. They're helicopters. They were called Angels. They always were out when he had flight operations to pick up people that had to eject to fell in the ocean or something. Yeah, that's for sure a bridge. A Russian one, because they were all white like that. That's a picture out of the elevator door on the side of it. Angels. That's just something coming in for landing. Water looks cold, doesn't it? Yeah, there's a picture from the elevator looking up on the side of the ship. And some kind of a whaleboat. They might launch someday. That's a sponsor on the side of the ship. So we'll go out there and watch the water go by. Smoke cigarettes when you aren't supposed to be smoking. When they had lights of no smoking while they were loading ammo or fuel on the ship. Nobody paid a whole lot of attention to it. That's the 5-inch guns on the side of the ship, which now are probably antiques.
Okay, the second one is Army Super 8, Vietnam, 1972. So, what are we going to be seeing here?
You're going to be seeing pictures of ground. Actually, these, I'm sure, are all done in Vinh Long, which was the last place I was stationed for. I went home in Vietnam in the Army, and I was in the 7th or the 1st Cav in the Delta Company, which was one of the few ground units in that part. This was down near the Delta area of Vietnam, South Vietnam. Not very many mountains and stuff, mostly. Rubber tree plantations and swamps. So we basically had ship helicopters and stuff in the battalion, but we were the only ground unit that went out and did ambushes and picked up people that got shot at and sent out when they needed assistance on the ground. And we also escorted convoys with jeeps, which is that I was a sergeant in charge of the jeep convoy unit. And this first, you want me to go on?
No, I mean, tell as much as you want to.
Well, this first picture is outside the perimeter of the Vinh Long base. The town of Vinh Long was maybe 5 miles from the base. All right, this is a picture of the perimeter of the base at Vinh Long, showing some Vietnam mama sons walking by. You can see some of the better-looking places in that Vietnamese went in that sea. They actually had cars. Now that's the base itself. That's a South Vietnamese Army base that was right next to us. That's a South Vietnamese flag flying in the guard tower. And that's pretty much a view of the South Vietnamese. And these were the Vietnamese. That's how they got around with these little motorcycles with dollies they pull. Go here and there. This is just some of the outside area around Vinh Long. That's how they lived. This was actually a city. Now that's the entrance. I think that's the entrance to the base. Yeah, it is, because there was a lot of Vietnamese worked there, and they had to go through security before they came into the base. That was the gate to the base. And this is probably some people in my battalion or my squad guardian. No, these are the South Vietnamese soldiers that were across the street from. When we shut down and went back to the United States, we gave them the whole base. And the South Vietnamese Army took over and kept it probably for about 6 months before they gave it to the NVA. There's some more Vietnamese riding around on their little bike motorcycles. They couldn't believe how many people they could get on one of those little motorbikes. That was one of the aviation units that we had a lot of funerals because a lot of them got killed. That was us, Powder Valley. That's somebody in my battalion. Those were one of the steaming creams. Every base had a place where you could go get a massage and a hot shower. They had Vietnamese people ran them. That was us because we were the only infantry company there. That's the mama sign, probably washing the clothes. That's one of the guard posts. I know his face, but I can't remember his name. He was one of the guys in our unit. And another one. Now this guy, remember, he was from Hawaii. He was a badass. He could do taekwondo. That's inside of our base. Oh no, that's the prisoner of war camp for the NVA. But all day long they'd bust these rocks and then pile them up, and then next day they'd move them back where they were at, and then see them still moving the rock. Those were NVA prisoners. That was in Chu Lai, which was our headquarters. It was about 20 miles away by road. That was a bigger base, much bigger base. It was the headquarters of a bunch of different units on the Mekong River, not too far. We had to go across the Mekong on a ferry to get there. And that's where we had gun jeep doing convoy duty. But that's a guard position, and that's probably Canto because we didn't have those concrete bunkers at our place. We just had wooden towers. Yeah, that's the perimeter at Canto. Now that's a boa constrictor or a python. I actually traded a electric fan to some Vietnamese kids that came up to the Jeep while we were waiting on the ferry, showing us this snake. I said, we were moving some stuff from our base to over there, and I fanned a bunch of other stuff in the back of the Jeep. So I give you a fan. They said, okay. So I traded them the fan for this snake. And here I am playing with it. They weren't all that, didn't seem to be dangerous at the time. People make a big fuss about them. As long as they didn't get hold of you with their mouth, they couldn't constrict, so. Yep, that's me playing. The Vietnamese were scared to death. When we'd go out in the field, I'd put them in a footlock with it. And they'd cuss me out when I come back. Because it got out, well, it scared the hell out of them. Eventually, I think some Vietnamese killed it. Just got out. Yeah, that was another guy in our unit playing with. Most of the people didn't want to play with him like he did. But it was a fairly small one compared to some I saw. And then they had some of them that were 30 foot long. He used to feed them ducks. They put baby ducks in the cage with them and they'd feed them. Yeah. They were strong as hell. I mean, they really had strong muscles. I don't say that one was probably about 5 or 6 foot long. Vietnamese capture them all. They ate them. Made soup out of them or something. But I thought it was a good deal because it was the Army's fan anyway. I was the only one in the whole unit that had a pet snake. I prefer dogs now. That was a mess. A bunch of dogs that got born at our unit. We forever having dogs that come in the water. And of course, the Americans would take care of them. The Vietnamese would eat them. That's me petting them. They just had a whole litter of puppies under our barracks there. Yep. That's the mama on top. Looks just like Pancho, doesn't he? Sure, that might have been one of Pancho's kids that some Vietnamese or some soldier brought back. He looks just like Pancho. Paul Nancy's dog. Paul, yeah. I don't know whatever happened to it because we stood down there. I suppose we just left her there. Couldn't take them home. That's funny to see that picture. I don't remember taking that. There's a Chinook carrying in a broken up Huey. I've actually seen them with a Huey underneath, and underneath them an OV-1 or a scout helicopter. They carry one on top and then one. And then I've seen and we had those great big sky cranes that would bring in. It could carry the Chinook, and the Chinook would carry those big sky cranes could carry some weight. That's an aerial view of probably pretty good size. Might even be outskirts of Saigon. But I don't know. Bomb craters. They were everywhere. Of course. That's just probably in the helicopter video or in another helicopter. That's why it's bouncing around. Those are all bomb craters. That was probably around the perimeter of our base. Although I couldn't say for sure. It all looked the same from the sky. That's fires at something. Yeah, somebody done a fire mission. It was still burning. Probably artillery fire. Max sitting in the door of the Huey going somewhere.
Got a gun barrel on the right.
Oh, yeah. And either a 50 or a M60s. Some of them had 150 and an M60. Some of them had two M60s. Some of them had 250s. Some of them had Gatling guns when they came out. And some of them had the automatic grenade launchers. Were like a huge revolver shot, 40mm grenade. Now that's a bridge. That's probably around Saigon somewhere. And that's Canto. Probably Canto, the place. No, that was Vin Long. That's coming in for a landing there, where we would at. Nope, sorry. That's got to be Saigon with that big ship out there. So that's probably when we've gone in the way. And that's a 50 M60 with the helicopter grip on the back. Yeah, that's coming into Tonks New Air Base, Bin Long, where that was a big Army base. We escort convoys there and back. We have 3 or 4 gun jeeps with M60s, and then we always had a helicopter over the top of us. And we always went as fast as we could. Never stopped for anybody. That was the only camp I ever got going to Saigon. We were usually only there for half an hour and turn around and go back with another convoy. Didn't do it very often, maybe once a month. But it was interesting. Yeah. Now that's probably the edge of our basin in Vin Long. That's so good. Mekong River. Yeah, that is. It's the river bank. Now that's the ferry we'd take to get over to Canto. You notice it's crammed full of people. Yeah, that's where our convoy waiting at the ferry. That's where I got the snake. Yeah, that was a Hawaiian guy. Yep, that's probably the kids I bought the snake from. You get Coke in a little plastic bag with a chunk of ice in it. There's a big river, the Mekong. That ferry going across. That's one of our gun jeeps. Yeah, that's a big thing that people like to do in the military. Shoot birds.
Where are you heading in this boat?
Probably either to Canto or back. The only time we'd ever go on it, we'd go across the river because Canto was our major headquarters. With Vin Long was sort of an outpost, but it had about 5 helicopter squadrons in us. It was a fair size base, but Canto was probably a couple thousand soldiers there. And that's downtown. Probably that's been long downtown. That was typical of most Vietnamese cities. Well, that's me and the Hawaiian guy and then my driver and a mama son, or maybe a hooker. Then there may be a hooker for sure. Come from the nightclub. He love you long time, no shit, GI. That's just self-explanatory. So is that. Uh-oh. Call Morgan and Morgan. Motorcycle accident. Dude, Kim walk. There's Eddie. Yeah. That's Eddie. Yeah, that was a spotter plane firing marker rockets for a fire mission, an area. That's exactly what that was. I can't remember, LH something or other. They had rockets. We had probably called them in to mark a enemy position or something. They didn't really. They could have put 2.75-inch rockets, which were made for killing people, but these were just marker rockets to mark the target area, keep them from shooting us. There's the Vietnamese harvesting their rice. There's our water buffalo. They all have water buffalo. Made great targets. Hard to miss one. Not that we ever shot them. There's a typical house in the country. They all lived in that one little house with the pigs, with the duck. They all raised ducks they had huge duck farms. There's some country people that their water buffaloes. That was their transportation and their work. Now see, there's a whole duck. That's a duck farm. And that's a rice paddy. They raised these ducks. They love to eat ducks. You can see there's thousands of them in there. And the rice paddies are made drain them when it's time to harvest. And the ducks would go elsewhere. But they had these little kids would herd them. This guy's fishing in the rice paddy. They put out nets and catch them. Trouble is, the rice paddies were fertilized by human excrement. So they weren't real healthy to be walking around. That's probably in the town. That might be Saigon coming in on a convoy. Looks too big to be been long. There, pretty busy. Could be Canto. No, there we go. Canto, it's still and I can't read Vietnamese. I think this is probably Saigon. See, Shell gas station, just like we got. They have McDonald's, even. There we are. Yeah, because that's the docks when we brought a convoy in. I don't know what the balloons were for. Somebody got into it, probably. There's Poncho. This was back at the base in Minlog. Happy to be home. There's me again. I need a haircut. Our gun sheet. Getting them ready to go or coming back. Everyday Vietnamese on their bikes. A Buddhist temple or whatever they were celebrating. I think they were Buddhists. And that's probably Saigon. That really nowhere else would have had a temple that big. And that much electric water. Yeah. This is typical Saigon. Oh. An Americanized Vietnamese woman. Mini skirt. Probably belongs to some offshore. Another temple. Yeah, we're coming into Saigon or leaving one of the two. It's actually a pretty nice city, just crowded. I expect it's even better now that the NVA, or North Vietnam Unions took it over. Buildings in downtown Saigon. Now we're back to Vinh Long, probably with that, the Mekong. Yeah, this is probably still the outskirts of Saigon. We wouldn't have been riding around in jeeps downtown otherwise. Well, that's a Vietnamese funeral procession. Of course, they go all out. Yeah, there's the Buddhist monk, whoever he is. Yeah, must have been a real high value person. Pay him all that attention. Yeah, a funeral procession. And that's the temple. Yeah, this is definitely Saigon. They had some really colorful ones. Now that's either leaving or coming back. Yeah, probably going back. I don't see any trucks behind that.
Is that a convoy or just a jeep?
And it was us returning for the convoy. There's that's probably a Huey that got shot down. I mean, that air cabins units that we had, we were averaging a person, at least a couple troops every week, because they'd go out into the Delta and they'd fly the little loaches to attract enemy fire, and then they'd swoop down. Once they start shooting at them, they'd come down with one or two Cobra gunships and fire them up. But they got a lot of times those loaches that were used for bait or even Hueys would get shot down. I mean, it's easy to hit a helicopter when it's just hovering. And that was the purpose, was to draw fire from the enemy. A lot of times when they were drawing fire, it killed them. We lost a good many of the air cab people in the kind of mission. Yeah, probably been long. Maybe going to Canto. It doesn't look like Saigon. So these were actually good, decent roads in that part of Vietnam. I wish I had a movie camera where we got one out up north in the 101st and in America when I was out in the jungle and stuff. But I wasn't about to carry a camera around. I had enough weight. And even in this unit, when we were out in the field, I didn't carry a camera. Didn't have enough room to put it. I don't even remember having a movie camera. I don't remember that. I don't remember why I had it or where I got it. Probably traded something for it. Or bought it at the PX for almost nothing. The area around the camp of Round Long.
So that was your base, Bin Laden, primarily?
When I was in the 1st Aviation Brigade.
Then where were you based when you went up north?
Huh?
Where were you based later?
That was the last place. I was in the Marical first in July, which is in the Central Highlands, in the infantry battalion. And then I was in the 101st in a scout platoon, which was up above Da Nang in the very northern part of South Vietnam, in the mountains. And then after that, when I left there, because they stood down, I went to this place for the last 5 or 6 months of it. No, about 4 or 5 months. But the rest of the time I was up, I didn't have I had a still camera I carried for a couple times. It just, when you pack alien on the back, you can only take so much weight. And I would rather have an extra magazine full of ammo any day than a camera.
Yep.
And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I'm surprised I even had these films. But by the nature of being there, you're going to always get pictures when there's nothing much going on. People shooting at you, or you're out in a dumb idiot and have time to take pictures. Most of the ones you see come from combat photographers, because that's all they do.